Ladies and gentlemen and ladies, welcome to another week, another episode of the Medicine Ball Podcast. You could have chosen to spend your time anywhere. You rock with me today. Thank you. I never take that lightly. Before we get into it, let my beat drop. Yes, that's right. Welcome to Medicine Ball with your boy LS3 to be exact. And if you ain't in shape, at least your brain should be. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Medicine Ball Podcast, where we focus on giving your brain a six-pack by exercising your mind. Now, exercising your mind means that you actively think about and deal with all situations by first seeking to do anything other than what you are normally programmed and or comfortable in doing. Now, if you're someone who struggles and wants to get better at thinking about things beforehand, as opposed to reacting in ways that require less effort, well, just like anything you want to get better at, it does require training, practice, and work. Now, I'm well aware that thinking about things beforehand as opposed to responding off instinct does require effort. And who doesn't prefer things that are easy? Well, the first step, my friends, can be very easy, and that's to begin to look at all things from an unbiased point of view, which in itself will increase your curiosity in life. Now, exercising your mind won't give you all the answers. You will, however, begin to look at things with more peace, understanding, and patience, while simultaneously equipping yourself with more tools and strategies to help you effectively deal with this thing called life. Now, before we go any further, I'm no doctor, no psychiatrist, no psychologist. I have, however, been diagnosed with bipolar disorder level 1 for 16 years. And to be honest, I got to a point in my life where I was looking at the person I was becoming versus the person I wanted to be. And that, among other things, required me to look at my mental health responsibly. So whether or not you're diagnosed or know someone who's diagnosed or have symptoms or just want to know more about it, it doesn't matter. Maybe you're one of the many people who could just use some tips, tricks, and different ideas to help you get through day-to-day life. Pull up a seat, kick up your feet. This is your family, man. Welcome home, no judgment zone. This week's episode, ladies and gentlemen, a very special episode. Episode 416, B.O.B Bend or Break. Let's go. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another week, another episode of the Medicine Ball Podcast. I'm going to get right into it. Well, I'm going to do my intro and then we're going to get right into it. And as always, well, not as always, but my intros end up leading right into the episode and what we're talking about. So, real quick, merchandise. So I mentioned, well, go check the website, but I've mentioned in newsletters and things of that nature that my next drop of merchandise of clothing will consist of my brand colors, which are the colors that I'm pretty sure you see synonymous with the site and a lot of things that I'm posting. So it will just be in those two particular colors. Long story short, there was a hiccup in the order due to failed consolidation. Go look that up. But the order's in now, so I didn't deactivate, but I turned the shop off on my website because, like, through the grace of God, it's just been, like, people been really ordering it, and it's been getting a lot of hits since it's been made over, and I'm doing more things. So I had to turn the shop off. So this Friday coming up, right? Not the Friday, the next Friday, rather, for some of y'all, I'll be turning the shop back on, and it's first come, first serve. I appreciate y'all's support. Piggybacking off of that, go check out that new website, www.medicineball.ls3.com. I appreciate and need all feedback. I'm working on some survey forms right now in reference to that. If you've been following the podcast, man, it just like, it never ends if you want to be anywhere near, I'm not even going to say successful as a business owner. If you want to survive, just stay afloat, just tread water, it never ends. So analytics is something else that I've had to get because I'm associating AdSense and things of that nature with my web page. YouTube, I have committed and went ahead and committed a lot of time this past week to just studying and taking notes on the how-to videos so I can move a little bit more seamless through the video editing process. And so far, it took me like an hour to do my intro, but I'm proud of my intro, as well as and when I say intro, I mean like my intro to the videos, right? So I made an intro that's going to go at the beginning of all my videos, and then an introduction video-wise, because I know I just been dropping stuff, but with everything else going on, Wisdom app, shout out to the Wisdom app. I think I'm up to about 250 followers. If you want to talk about mental health or just want to see a rawer, more uncut version of LS3 and the things that I talk about, go download the Wisdom app. And I do live talks, and that will give you a chance, if you turn on your notifications, to chat with me live no matter where you are. that is driving people to the website, to the YouTube page. So I'm actually getting subscriber notifications. I think last week I got an email from YouTube. Like, I always get email, but it's like you start getting different emails. Hey, your channel, and I'm like, look, goodness gracious. But thank you, God, right? All of that is just like, and I complain. I'm gonna keep it real with you. I complain, I lament, right? That's the biblical term. But what I also tell the people who I also, lead and work and whatnot, and just the people around me who ask me for their advice, man, I'm gonna get off that complain train quicker. So and this could be a whole nother episode, but oftentimes we pray or we ask for something and it's answered, and then when we get it, we don't really want it because then we start complaining about it, right? So when I was praying about the podcast and success and a brand and being able to reach people, when I was praying about it and begging about it, it would be, and I'm human, but like, I can't just complain about it now. We do that a lot with God, and that'll be another episode of something that I do on wisdom. So like, subscribe, share, follow Medicine Ball LS in the number 3. Go follow Mamba, that guy Mamba, right? He don't have no cell phone, so guess who has to deal with that profile? All of that goes into this week's episode 416, B.O.B Bend Or Break. Bend or break. I just gave you some of the things that, have to do with what I want to do when it comes to my podcast and my brand and just being diligent. And, ultimately, since I do speak more so on spirituality, I carry it as like, yo, man, you if you're going to bring God into it, you got to do your best work, right? So I do take it very serious, but life has been, a little rough for me as well. I'm not going to get too much into it, but I was just thinking about it, and I think, like, at this point right now, matter of fact, so y'all gonna know what's going on. This is Saturday. We drop on Saturdays now, right? April 30th of 2022, I have lost 7 or 8 people, 5 of them under 40. Rest in peace to, I don't want to put my family's name out there, but it was a murder in Atlanta, about a month and a half ago. And long story short, the sibling of that person who got murdered stopped eating, and her health always wasn't the best. And, about a month ago, she passed away. So yeah, rest in peace to Archie Everso, right? I'm in Atlanta, and I actually know the guy, and he passed away. I would be remiss if I ain't at least mention him. So everybody's probably like, who is Archie Everso? If you've ever heard that song, We Ready, We Ready, We Ready. If you're in Atlanta, you know that song, man. Rest in peace to Archie. If you play Madden, you know that song. I was just talking to, like, my mom and dad don't know him by name, but when I do the song, they know that song. Rest in peace. So it's just been, a lot with me, dealing with that dating, right? I'm a single male, like, yo, I want to date, and this is what I talk about a little bit more on wisdom as well. Like, the dating pool is crazy, and if I can figure out a way to just, like, sugarcoat what I observe, just my opinion, I will do it. But go look up the movie Idiocracy, Idocracy. Just go look it up on YouTube and look at the intro and the premise of the movie. That's what I think of the dating pool, right? Righteousness. I mean, I don't even want to get too deep into that, but Medicine Ball, I mentioned that. I'm looking at my notes because I'm not recording this week because it's just it's a lot. But man, let's just go into work. B.O.B, episode 416, B.O.B Bend Or Break. Let's go into work because this is kind of spurred, and this is something I touched on previously. I believe it was called Palm Tree Life, right? But I like to say the same, and especially as a leader, I'm starting to learn. You got to say the same thing in like a whole bunch of different ways if you're dealing with different personalities, because, they might not get it one way. So anyway, so I got all of this going on and at work, and I thank God, right? Consider it pure joy when you have trials, because I know that if I stay righteous and I operate righteously, whatever I think success is or what's on the other side is probably going to blow my mind because of the skills that I have acquired. But we've talked about all this. Hacks, using the trials and your failures as information and building blocks, man. So let's go back to work. I work in a call center environment virtually. I'm not even gonna get into that. Go listen to previous episodes, but just like, so not only virtually, these folks at their house, right? So you'd be surprised how your elders and things of that nature, people with kids and people who, if you were just walking out along the street, you'd be like, oh, that person's got to be reasonably responsible because they got 3 or 5. Nah, right? I already talked about this stuff. And I ain't gonna put too much information out there, but my spider sense is up because they just had a downsize of an operational manager, and the teams are already averaging 4 agents minimum over what we're supposed to have based on the company standards. And then they spring on us the month of May. If my team listening, the month of May, we cannot play a 100% call audit. I ain't never even heard of this, man. Yo, let me tell you how it was set up. Now, mind you, I've been at this position as a leader at this company for years. So I've been through this time of year in this position before. We definitely did have this last year, right? I could probably go back and listen to the podcast. We definitely didn't have these audits, or I don't know what's going on. But in leadership, without getting too in depth with it, I get it, because we're dealing with things that are just like not job laws; they're federal laws. But again, they're adults. You got to tell an adult, hey, that's a HIPAA law. That's a felony. But anyway, we have certain scripts and certain things that we have to say. And if you have been in any type of call center environment, like for instance, this call is being recorded. Little simple stuff that when we answer the phone or talk to people about business that we've become used to, but don't realize, man, that's a law that they have to say, right? So even if you disconnect with a member and you call them back, you got to state it again. Just little stuff like that. And I'm not joning. But all of this to say, an audit where they're monitoring 100% of the calls. 100% of the calls. Now, without getting too deep, and this is just the work aspect on top of everything else, right? Without getting too deep into it, I'm gonna, have y'all do some research. But you know me, I've had some previous opportunities and challenges when it came to just like typing up diligently, right? And I always knew that this was a weakness of mine that I was gonna have to address, but it's just the wording. So I can explain something to you, but when you have to type something up that human resources or unemployment may have to see, or a lawsuit might have to see, you can't play around with that. So my boss is in a situation where I'm getting better, right? Because I'm getting smarter, life hacks, I'm doing templates, but she would just be sending back all my correctives, right? So boom, I'm just now getting over that and just being like, man, I'm just gonna have to get better at typing like very quickly. So you know me, they started giving us a heads up about a month ago about this 100% compliance audit in May. So I'm just like, man, I know my boss. And that's one thing she said to me, but I already knew, man, if you working for somebody, you better know your boss, right? She ain't even gonna ask no questions. By the time she asks some questions, you already in too deep. So I was like, oh, nah. I was like, at the bare minimum, and I don't have no problem saying this because, like, it's nothing, and this is something, bend or break. Keep in mind, episode 416, bend or break. We've been talking about failures, growth, etc., right? But it's just like, I know my boss, and I'm just like, oh, nah. At the bare minimum, we're being audited. I know my team. I know who's who. I know who doesn't know how to follow the script. At the bare minimum, they gonna be on some paper. So if they get hit with this audit, because I already know that's what's gonna. And it's just like, if you ain't in leadership, you don't get it. If somebody on my team gets hit with an audit, they gonna come back to me and see if I put that person on any type of documentation. And if not, they're not even gonna say anything to the agent. They're gonna be like, bro, you knew about this a month and a half ago. You should have been listening to your agents and getting ahead of this and knowing what's going on. And then they'll just use one incident like that and be like, yeah, you don't take care of your team, right? But because it'd be real. Oh, you don't look out for your team. You work 10 hours a day. One little incident like that, you ain't there for your team, right? So I was like, oh, nah, that's not going to happen. Boom. So, and I thank God for this without getting too much into it. Like, and I want y'all to listen to just like, at work, the skills that I'm bad at or might not even have, that I'm not having to necessarily succeed at, but develop. So long story short, after meetings and talking to people, it was like, boom, you need what you were at this time, a subject matter expert. So I'm a person of my word. I developed 2 young ladies on my team, empowering them and leading them and giving them the skills to be the next TLs, right? Boom. Number 1, it's a good thing to do, is righteous. Right? Number 2, if you want to get better, we talked about this on a previous episode. If you want to get better at something you might be weak at, teach it to somebody, right? And number 3, within the company, you're not going to move from TL to like operations if you cannot create other TLs, right? So all of that to say, it's a lot of diligence because I'm having to get with them, have meetings with them, break down details, let them be empowered. Boom, that gives me an idea to go get up with all my female colleague TLs and be like, yo, you got templates on any type of correctives or verb? Cool, send me all that. Organize everything. Boom, boom, boom. Start listening. It's a compliance audit. You can't just write nobody up. You got to listen and make sure they're doing stuff. And then you got to be detailed. Yeah, this person had the script up, but they didn't actually click on the things within the script that opens it up so they can transition. Boom. Then you got to take screenshots. Then you got to organize folders, right? All of this to say, like, so I hold people accountable. Without going too deep into it, 2 people were rude to the member. Not only were they rude to a member, because if you rude to a member as a TL, like I might be able to work with you depending on it. But if the moment the member verbalizes that, like, yo, this call is horrible, or like, yo, you were rude on a recorded line, right? Yo, it's a different conversation. Wrote one person up. I ain't even get a chance to, I call myself and this is just like a learning curve. I call myself being diligent, you know what I mean? And I didn't do anything wrong, but it was a corrective situation. I recorded the meeting, which we're allowed to do. And it wasn't nothing rough, but I was like, yeah, because I've learned from my mistake, or I thought I had. I learned from my mistakes, man. Let me go ahead and be diligent because she might say that I chumped her out in this meeting, right? Didn't even what, right? I don't even know what she said, but I do know what I learned. And I'm not going to put that out there what I learned because I don't want to go too deep and put anything in jeopardy. But long story short, my boss pulled up on me like, yo, we going to set up a skip level meeting. And I'm no fool. Like, my boss talks to me personally as well. I know what a skip level is. For those of you who don't know, look at now, I'm going to tell y'all. They're going to meet with if you're a management, they're going to meet with your team without you there. Give your team a chance if they don't like you to express that openly, right? I don't even know what the young ladies say, but I'm a perceptive person. I know if she said I did something to her, then they would just be talking to me about her. The fact that they talking to the whole team, she must have went and said, and I still to this day don't know what she said. The whole team, I'm torturing them. Mind you, it's a compliance, 100%. In the month of May, we cannot play. You were rude to a member, and the member said that. I'm doing my job, right? Skip level meeting. Through the grace of God. Because I say this humbly. I've had to tell the story to some of my closer friends, but I'm not saying this to talk trash. I ain't gonna put a number on it. Long story short, they talked to quite a few people and only one person had a negative report, and it's the person who was being held accountable. Boom. Right? There's a bigger meaning to this story, and I'm just rolling with it. I ain't even gonna have to do no cuts because it's just like amazing, right? I'm still gonna do my thing because in this particular job, my boss was telling me about it, like, in a way, my ego gets hurt, my pride gets hurt, my character gets hit because it's like, even in that situation, I was doing my job. Because had that been audited in May, they don't care about nothing else or what she gonna tell or nothing. Do your job, bro, right? And I'm still working on it, but it takes away some of my potency, right? I stopped being as diligent because I associate diligence with being too hard, but that's not the case, right? So it's just like, it's stiff for them to be like, yo, be nice, but hold them accountable, and it's to the T, right? Episode 416, Bend or Break. Palm tree life, right? So long story short, I hold somebody else accountable, right? On a call. Now, mind you, these are just calls that I'm hearing because I know that it's 100%. So it would be like, I would actually be doing them a disservice if I listened to 5 calls and one of them was bad and I ain't say nothing. No, that's not gonna happen in May. I gotta say something. Man, I ain't even gonna get into this, but this call was flagrant. Flagrant. Right? Hold somebody accountable. I'm in HR the next day again, right? I know HR like, God darn, buddy, but using scripture, right? Boom. Because that's another part to this. Deuteronomy 28:7, because I've had to adapt. The first thing was I had to go into each week with weekly scriptures just associated with work. And that one is, yo, your enemies will attack you all at once from one direction, but stand righteous and they will flee from you in 7 directions. I'm using scripture. I ain't being arrogant. I'm just, you gotta be righteous because it sucks to do your job and hold, like somebody actually made a mistake and you just, boom. So I also had to tell myself as well after the second time, like, this is ridiculous, bro. So, and even in that situation, without too much detail, I was being relatable. I wasn't being fake. I was being actually quote unquote nice. And again, and it's happened before, when people's back against the wall, they don't care. So I've committed myself to learning and starting to try to focus on being fair, but not necessarily nice. Like bump nice, be fair. Fair is following the policies, right? So anyway, without getting too deep into that, we got this audit. I have been very diligent with that. Organized, man. I done had to break out these sticky board calendars and dry erase boards and little notations. Like, man, I had to face my worst enemy writing stuff down. I don't have no choice. I'm gonna get smoked, right? All of that, even during this audit, and I'm not gonna go too deep into that because I still got a second half where I'm gonna touch on a few things. But it's just like, it's a morale killer. And so what I'm telling my team the whole time is, man, palm tree. I'm not doing anything personal. This is best for you. You rather me and you have a conversation where I know you versus somebody else who don't know you, don't care about you, listen to you, don't know if your dog died, and just be like, oh, she was rude, fire her. Bend, but don't break. So I want to pick up on that, get into some things, and I'm gonna try to wrap it up, man. But I feel like when I get into it like that, I know it's a good story, so I don't mind going over my time limit a little bit because I feel like I'm giving quality information or a quality product. But anyway, so last week I talked about Lego science, right? And I'm not gonna say a majority of the time when I'm giving people some advice or a strategy, 10 times out of 10, I'm pretty much talking to myself as well. I'm facing that issue as well. If I'm telling my team, what I just say, right? Scientifically proven, if you are weak at something, the way to get better is to teach it to other people, right? So I'm telling my team, bend, don't break, bend, don't break. But I'm knowing deep down, like, yo, you need to bend, don't break, right? You got deaths in the family, deaths left and right. The branding is taking off, but man, success is tedious. You're gonna be busy. If you don't want to have problems, even at any work or any job or anything you do, you're going to have to take the extra time to be tedious. So as I'm saying, bend but don't break, and people, I don't get it, and I'm relating it to the palm tree, right? We talked about that. I'm thinking to myself, man, I'm an athlete, reasonably, right? I'm in the best shape of my life, but like, I'm an athlete, man. I know a little bit about muscles. I believe that this is like scientific. Like with your muscles, you have to stretch them back and forth to make them stronger or to get them more flexible or whatever. So that started me, going to go look up science. And I went and looked up elasticity, right? We're thinking elastic, right? Elasticity, bend or break. And I've been saying bend, don't break, and that's what I mean. But I've been telling my team, bend or break. What are you going to do? So elasticity is the ability of a body to resist a distorting influence and return to its original size and shape when that influence is removed. That's a scientific version. So long story short, when the heat is on, right, it's your ability to survive during that heat, and then when it's over with, go back to everything was normal without being, I'm not even gonna say that because that's part of the definition. So boom, I started looking up these definitions, and I see a couple of things that I like. The next thing I saw was resilience. We talking science now. Resilience is the ability to absorb energy when elastically deformed and released or unload that energy. That's your ability to like when I always tell people, if you hit rock bottom at the bare minimum, you better use the bottom to spring off of that joint and bounce back up, right? Same thing. That's your resilience in science, right? Now, another word I saw and I was like, man, I can't wait. This is bars. This is like life, like bump science. This is life science, right? Toughness. Toughness is the ability of a material to absorb energy and deform without fracturing. So that's your ability to bend without breaking, literally. So I got to think of toughness, resilience, elasticity. All three of these relate to this palm tree life, or even this mental elasticity, right? Or your mental adaptation. And the thing that I try to tell people is just like, and what we're doing, and I'm putting it all together, right? You have to, you can strengthen your ability to bounce back once you go through it. But and all of this is like proof of concept to everything that I've said, like in these last few episodes. You're going to fail at first. You might not break, but like, man, when you a shiny new car, that, you know what I'm saying, that first crumble, you know what I'm saying, even though it could be straightened back out, it could be fixed, it's never the same, right? Same thing. You know, if you've never broken any bones or anything like that, right, it'll never be the same, right? Or let's think to one of my favorite movies that's coming right off of my top of my head. Was it Rookie of the Year? I don't know, man. Rookie of the Year. Long story short, a kid lived in Chicago and was playing like just recreational baseball, fell, landed on his shoulder, and the way that it healed up in the cast caused the tendons to heal a little tighter. And long story short, it allowed him to throw the ball like 100 miles per hour. He ended up going to the pros and going through a season. And then during the game, he was walking back to the mound and he slipped and fell on his shoulder, and he knocked it back to quote unquote normal and couldn't throw fast anymore. And I think they were in the middle of the World Series. Boom. Same thing. He's a kid, right? That first thing is going to hurt, but just like, boy, it's going to be stronger when it heals. And that's the thing I think we have to understand, man. Failures is guaranteed, especially when it's something we've never experienced before. And I'm just going to keep pounding this because it's just like, you got to be careful with our confidence in our own abilities, right? So like, let's think about it. Let's go back to this palm tree, man, right? I like to give y'all little visuals real quick, and I'm going to wrap it up because there's another word that has one of the words we just went over when we went to talking about material science, but let's think of visual, right? I'm showing my age. You know, let's go back a couple of years. I don't know, tropical storm, Santa Maria, whatever you want to call them. It's a tropical storm for everything, right? Let's think back to the reporters. It's the same scene always, man. Some reporter holding on to their raincoat in their hat, getting hit with debris, yelling at the camera while the closed caption guy just like, I don't know what's going on. He just like, he falls on the keyboard, and you'll see like a stop sign flying through the background. But if they're on the beach, you think about looking into the background and you see that palm tree. And that palm tree is being hit so hard by the force of the wind that thing is darn near horizontal, leaning over. Right? But it always comes back. Because I say the same thing. It may exist, but I've never seen a palm tree just broken in half. I've never seen a palm tree that after the wind was going was still leaning to the side. I'm pretty sure they do, but I know how science works. Once the sun hit and it's a plant, it's going to go towards the sun based on photosynthesis bars, right? You have to go through it. Bend or break. Bend or break. And a lot of times that means we have to adjust some of the things we doing quickly. And I try to tell this to my team and people who have these urgent problems. And and I talked about how I'm able to see this, but I see the solution and they just can't get out their way. And I'm starting to learn, like, sometimes you got to push them little birdies out the nest. Holding them in the nest is only going to hurt them in the long run. Even with this situation, right? My job, the script. I bet you in retrospect, some of these folks, if they don't make it through the audit, will probably be like, man, I wish you would have just wrote me up for the script from the jump instead of arguing or complaining about it for an hour. So I want to wrap this episode up by telling you one last thing in reference to material science, and we've talking about bend or break. This is not a nice episode. Well, not as nice of an episode where I'm like, hey, you can do it. Yo, sometimes, bro, what are you going to do? Bend or break. I know situations in relationships, too many to remember, where that person I'm feeling sorry for, so I'm really with them even though I don't got love for them. And eventually we break up and they go get like 2 jobs. They driving a car, they got a house, da-da-da-da-da. And in retrospect, I'll be like, see, me thinking I'm quote unquote being a nice guy, right? If I would have just did this at the beginning, we could have both bend or break. So in material science, we talked about elasticity. The ability of the body to resist the distorting influence and return to its original size. Because that's the thing. We have to be more elastic so we can return back to our original size. Whether it be a relationship or a life experience, too often we, have a distorting influence and we don't return back to the original size when the influence is removed. right? Some of us have resilience, especially champs. That's the ability to absorb that energy when you're elastically deformed and release and load that energy, right? Toughness, what the ability of a material to absorb the energy and deform without fracturing, without breaking. But then there's one more concept. And for me, it related perfectly to spiritually. And that's proof of resilience, right? Because we already talked about resilience. There's actually something separate within this, what we're talking about, called proof of resilience, right? And that just piggybacks on what I just said, our inability to come back or bounce back. And proof of resilience is the greatest amount of energy that can be absorbed without creating a permanent damage. And a lot of times what we don't realize is that if we aren't going around about things mentally the right way, or I said this to my friend about a situation, but it's kind of funny in retrospect, but if we're not being mentally responsible in situations, how we feel about our failures, how we feel about our outcomes, man, I was just talking to women on the Wisdom app about like how we should always take ultimate responsibility to avoid being a victim. And they were talking about some of their messed up relationships. And in every conversation, every conversation on the app, they just couldn't be like, well, is it, but I can't help it if somebody else faked me out on who they were. Yes, you can. If not, you just a victim. You just to be faked out. Or even when women be like, well, he just did me so bad. I'm never going to date men again. And what they really be saying is like, I don't trust my judge of character. And that's because, and I'm just using that as an example in reference to what we're talking about, and go check out the Wisdom app. And that's because we don't come back. But if we go into these situations and we brace for impact, and we don't lead with fear, because that's the other thing from a spiritual aspect. And I'm talking, like I just said, I'm talking to myself, especially if you're a believer. Any type of fear, especially if you're moving righteously right now, if you not moving righteously and outside of his will, yeah, you might need to be fearful, right? But if you're moving righteously, God never says that you won't have troubles. He never says you won't be persecuted. I say this all the time. He actually says the exact difference. You have to deny yourself, pick up his cross, go through what he goes through. He don't never say you're not going to go through it. In life, we're going to have some kind of distorting influence time and time again, right? And with marketing and medicine ball, it's always going to be something to do if I wanted to be successful and get bread off of it some way, right? The thing about it is, if you're a believer, he promises that he will be there with you. And that should be a reminder to us. And it was a reminder to me, even as I'm talking. And I'm going to end with this, right? Like I be talking about pick yourself up. Yo, be a believer. It's crazy. People will be like, the devil is a liar, and know that we dealing against evil spirits, and then be trusted in their human ability to combat it. Caveman tactics. Oh, this spiritual? I'm not spiritual, but I have an ally who is. Yeah, I'm gonna just rock with him. And it's deeper than that for me, but that's for you thinkers out there. So I mind you, man, because a lot of this has to do with who you are, who your foundation is. And if you're a believer, you already know how I feel. But just in life, in general, you know, even as I lead people, or if you're somebody who's always shaken up or anxious, you have to understand you're never going to be able to be less anxious or less shaken up until you're able to bend or break. You may break, right? That may not be your route. That might not be your lane, whatever you're dealing with or whatever you're going through. But you better have some proof of resilience and be able to bounce back so you could continue to maneuver. You can't be debilitated to the point where you stop moving, you stop progress. Keep moving. Dave Chappelle said that one time. He was talking about a girl who got kidnapped, and it turned out, man, I ain't trying to laugh, man. She got kidnapped and turned out she was like 11 miles from her house, right? And he said they had dropped her on the corner. He was like, you can't kidnap me and take me that close to my house. This stuff looks familiar. Like, let me go. Like, just keep moving. You ain't got to go the right way. Just don't stand still. I ask y'all, don't stand still. This has been episode 416, B.O.B Bend or Break, man. And that's just adulthood. Like, you ain't going to win every situation, right? But you can make sure that you can still be efficient once it's over with, because another one's coming. but you can make it through. I appreciate y'all rocking with me. Like, subscribe, share, follow me on Wisdom. Follow me on my social medias. Check out that new website. Check out my YouTube, Lorenzo Scott III. Until next week, y'all stay up. I love y'all. Yeah.